Hey, Daniel. Nice to have you on, buddy.
Hey, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. So to just get right into it, Choose Life. Great book, by the way. Wonderful book. It's actually why I'm doing this podcast right now. I actually didn't even finish
Thank
it.
you.
On my Kindle, it says like 60% through because I just had to stop what I was doing and start this. Um, but I kind of wanted to know, like, what inspired you? What got you from the day to day, the grind, into the digital nomad life, the kind of everything, and then just what was the inspiration behind even writing it?
Yeah, good question. Okay. The inspiration behind writing the book, well, it seems a bit cliche, but I'd battled with imposter syndrome for a very, very long time since leaving my career and then taking the kids out of school and traveling around the world with them for 2.5 years. And it got to the point where I had some spare time and just trying to compute everything like the last 2.5 years that we'd experienced, all of the different life changes, all those struggles, all of the upsides, all of the downsides. And we'd written the blog uh, quite religiously for that 2.5 years. It was intended to keep friends and family up to date with what we were doing. I was not a big fan of Facebook, but my wife kept her Facebook feed going, and I never really had one. So I decided to start a blog to help people understand our choices and just keep up with our travels and make sure they could check in on us and we weren't homeless living under a bridge after quitting an 18-year career. And then when it came to writing the book, people kept saying to me, you should write a book, and I just kept batting them back and hiding behind the excuse of the blog and saying, look, if people want, they can go to the blog, they can find it. And I had very basic analytics from Google Analytics, and I could see it would get some hits, and then there would be some people would comment, and some people would reach out on email, but it wasn't getting huge traction. Uh, so it's like, how much interest is there out there, really? And I kept making excuses like us humans like to do. And then one time, my friend, I was having a conversation with a close friend over Skype back in those days. And he said, listen, man, just write the fucking book. Like, what is your downside? You have lived a life over the last 2.5, 3 years that most people are just dreaming of. And you can hide behind the blog as much as you like. But one, if you write that book, you might unlock just one other family. And two, it's forever going to be a like an icebreaker, or it's going to open doors you'll never ever have thought you could open. It's think about like the ultimate business card. And then I started thinking about it on that kind of term frame. And I'm like, yeah, he's right. He's 100% right. And I've got to push myself to do it. And I can always bail on a project if it doesn't work out. And if I feel I'm not a writer, I was just basically trying to trick my mind into stop telling me I'm not a fucking author. What gives you the right? What makes you think you can write a book? Because it's all you that's stopping you do anything all of the time. All of the excuses are the little monkey in your head and nobody else. And when you come to realize these things, and it should have been easy for me at that point because I'd already said fuck you to life and quit my job and gone through all of these huge changes and taken my kids out of school. So you'd have thought it would have started coming easy, but it isn't, man. Every time you come up against one of these hurdles, your brain just flicks back into that make excuses mode. So he finally helped me kind of see the clearer picture, and then I just started writing. And once I started writing, I couldn't stop. And I would be up between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m., 2 a.m., something like that. Once the house was quiet, that's when I could start doing it. And I'd take myself off into a different room, and I'd find a little place where I could stand and type. I found that was the best way that I could do it. And I just started bashing the keys, and it all just started coming out. Once I got into the rhythm, I was, I was very much into it, and I really wanted to get the message out, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, and I could ship something, and I could get it over the line. Uh, and it was almost finished, and I started having huge self doubts and imposter syndrome, like I suffered with this podcast, like you're probably suffering with your own podcast. You've got that little internal voice telling you that you shouldn't be doing this and you shouldn't be exposing yourself, and it's very difficult. And I actually remember I cold emailed Seth Godin. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Mm-mm.
He's a prolific writer and a brilliant thinker. And I'd seen a few of his TED Talks, and I'd read a few of his books, and I'd listened to him on a podcast. And at the very end of his podcast, he gave his email address. So I emailed him, and I just said, "Thank you very much for the podcast. Really inspiring words. I face a similar situation in what you guys were talking about on the podcast. I have a book finished, and I just cannot bring myself to ship it." And he came back with a really nice email and 3 or 4 different blog posts that he had written about this subject. And that just completely cured me and got me over the line. And before you knew it, I'd hired an editor, and then we were off to the next phase. That the edited book came back, all crossed out, all moved around.
And then you hated
so,
it.
Yeah, and then the process started again. But then you realize, the editor is your friend, and she was there to help, and she brought everything together really, really nicely. And that was actually, it was her kind of idea. It was right at the death. We were about to print it. And I think my wife commented on the back end of one of the chapters. She said, "I'm still not so sure about this chapter," because she'd read it and read it and read it. She was going through the whole edit with me. And then I said, "Well, why don't you write something down and I'll ping it across to Ashley, who was the editor, and then we'll just see." And then she come back and said, "This is amazing. What an idea. Why don't you do this at the end of like each chapter that you kind of," and we're like, okay. And that's why at the end of each chapter, there's like a couple of paragraphs, thoughts from Claire. And that went in right at the end. So yeah, it's kind on that the best feedback I get about my book is the paragraph or two at the end of each chapter that was tagged on by my wife.
Yeah.
And the best feedback I get about my podcast, Once Bitten, is my
Lauren.
11-year-old daughter, Lauren.
No, that's funny.
So maybe my imposter syndrome is correct after all.
No, no, man. Well, dude, it sounds like your friend is a great friend for like really inspiring you to do it and getting you into it. Oh,
yeah,
man.
No, exactly. I don't know whether it was what he said or whether he was just the 501st person. Like, it's like Bitcoin. How many touch points do you need?
Yeah, definitely.
It's not particularly it's not, you go down a rabbit hole, not particularly because of what one thing or what one person said. Just maybe it's just like, bam, okay, time. Who knows?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a multiple touch point thing. In the book, you kind of mentioned 4-hour work week a few times, and it's like it was something in my head that was telling me, it's like, I gotta tell Daniel, it's like 4-hour work weeks, like I did it because I said so. But Choose Life is like, I did it, this is how. And I freaking loved it. Like I have tabs saved, nomad.com, home, love dash home swap. Like I have it all on my phone now, and it's all because of that book. And like, I'm working towards it. It's not happening yet. This is step one. But I want to ask about like the homeschooling. So you were traveling for 2.5 years, bouncing from place to place, and you had to, essentially become a teacher, on all kinds of things. A teacher, a father, a writer. Like, how was it juggling all those hats?
Yeah, tough, but enjoyable. You know, it's like because it was done out of choice. You know, we chose that life, choose life. Yeah, you could say, you know, you choose a career. Many of us don't. Many of us get painted into a corner of the career that we ended up somehow falling into because you just took the first job that come along because you had that kind of threat of never being employed hanging over your head. And that's the wisdom that you get from your elders. Just take the first job that you get because you're way more employable once you're employed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, that's such a fiat mindset. It's like, well, why would I take a job that I fully intend just to leverage to leave? Like that's not adding value to anybody. But that's what you get taught. So the fact that, you know, we chose to do this and it was on us, those early days were really, they were tough, mate. You know, I had gone from essentially being a lodger in my own home to a 24-hour, 7 day a week father and husband. It was a total 180. Now, my wife, who had been caring after the kids for their whole life, and for the last 8 years as being, because that was how old our oldest was when we started traveling, she had carte blanche on pretty much every single parenting decision because just by virtue of the fact that I was not there. Now I was there
Mm-hmm.
and I was making parenting decisions like on the fly. And that was fucking shit up as far as she was concerned.
Yeah.
And so there was there were a lot of times where there were, it was tense, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because we have completely different parenting styles. As much as our ethics and our morals are, you know, firmly aligned, like just the day-to-day minutiae of decision making of like what a 3-year-old is doing,
Mm-hmm.
like you're gonna be on the completely opposite ends of the scale of the yes/no spectrum. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, Daddy, can I have an ice cream? No. As mummy's saying yes at the exact same time. You're like, well,
Now
what
you're the
the
bad guy.
fuck? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And a lot of confusion as well for the kids because they never had a 24-hour day, 7 day a week dad. Like that
Mm-hmm.
was new. I'd never had 24-hour day, 7 day a week kids. That was new.
Mm-hmm.
And like it would drive me crazy. I would have to go for some really long walks because I would just get driven insane by the nonsense that was going on in the house, like the arguing between kids over like the most ridiculous stuff, which I'd
Yeah.
never seen before. Obviously, you see a little bit of it at the weekends, but just to be that constant barrage. And of course, we're trying to redesign a life. So you've got that stress. Some weeks we didn't even know if we had a roof over our head in 6 or 7 days. And we were trying to, you know, put an itinerary together and keep on top of the flights and keep on top of the home swaps and keep on top of
Mm-hmm.
everything else. Like, you know, and of course the 3 meals a day and trying to actually take some responsibility for the kids homeschooling, which was another big mistake that we made. Homeschooling, we learned very quickly, is a mindset rather than school at home.
Mm-hmm.
There, a lot of new homeschoolers, new families to this way of living will do the same mistake that will make the same mistakes that we made, and that's just try and replicate a school setting in the front room.
Mm-hmm.
Big no-no. That does not work. And then it takes a little time for you to realize, I can get the same amount of learning experience into a concentrated 45 minutes to an hour each day than it would take a school 8 solid hours plus homework to do,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much dead, pointless time going on at school that the kid is never actually fully engaged in anything. And then it comes back to choice again. It's never their choice, right? There's no learning that goes on at school. It's forced education.
Yeah, it's like a little state indoctrination camp.
Yep.
To an extent.
Oh no, it's exactly what it is. There's and they're getting so brazen with it, they're not even trying to hide it anymore.
This is true.
And it's so obvious when you peel it back, and if you start trying to figure it out from first principles, and like John Taylor Gatto, I know you said you read Dumbing Us Down. It's all there. It's all there. People have just got to like pick up the book and take a look at it from a different viewpoint, not from the meme of free education as a human right, because that's very powerful and that shames you into believing that state education is the only way that you'll ever be able to make anything of yourself. And how dare you challenge it? And how dare you, when poor, starving children in third world developing nations, if what they would only give to have a day in your classroom, it's all
Mm-hmm.
shaming,
Yeah.
and it's all done intentionally to keep you going back. And honest to the state's indoctrination.
Yeah. That makes me think about a guy I work with. He's always talking about like America. You don't know how great you got it. We're the greatest country in the world. We should be the world police. Like all that. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I get it. Like better us than China. But I always tell him, it's like, I mean, all we do is really just like we go into these countries. We say, oh, look, we'll give you $30 million in aid, or it's actually like $70 billion in aid. But really, the truth of the matter is they're going to pay us like 120 billion back when it's all said and done, and then we own them. And then we do that. I don't know how many embassies the U.S. has or how many places we're doing it, but it's hundreds. I mean, a lot
Yep.
more than that. And then that makes me think of God, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, like John
Yeah.
Perkins. Wonderful
Yeah.
book. And then it makes me think of your interview with Sam Callahan, Sam
Hmm.
Calla with Swan.
Sam Callahan, yeah, from Swan. Yeah.
Those like I love that rabbit hole. Like I can't sit down and just read what the World Bank is putting out, but I'm glad he's doing it.
It's truly sick what we've been led to believe, and the shit we've let our leaders get away with our money, with our
Mm-hmm.
tax-paying money. It's our money they use to build the weapons, to buy the weapons, to go in and conquer, for want of a better word, invade these countries under the false pretense that if we didn't do it, these poor people living in these countries, it's just such nonsense. And yeah, John Perkins' book is brilliant. I urge anybody to read it if you really want to know what's going on, and listen to Sam on my pod, and he was on Stefan Lavera's pod, and they talked about the Bank of International Settlements on his pod, and we talked about IMF on my pod, and IMF World Bank kind of wrapped into one. Uh, what these institutions do is we'll look back on this one day, and the crimes against humanity are endless, the suffering endless. These third world countries in air quotes, these developing nations in air quotes, that have just been decimated
Mm-hmm.
and completely crippled, and not allowed to develop, not even close.
No,
Like
under the thumb.
just burdened with debt, infiltrated to make sure the right people are put in place in power, that are going to take the bribes that come in, and then indebted generations upon generations of people, and then on top of that, tell them they can't use fossil fuels the way that we used fossil fuels to get where we are, and completely demonize them for anything that they do just to try and get a leg up. Um, there's a day of reckoning coming,
Mm-hmm.
I hope, for those people in the inner circles that do this. We as Bitcoiners see Bitcoin as the peaceful revolution. We can opt out of these systems just by simply by exchanging our fiat government fiat currencies, whether that's dollars, pounds, euros, doesn't matter, whatever fiat currency you are beholden to, if you just dollar cost averaging out of that into Bitcoin, you are voting with your purchasing power and with your money and with your time and your effort that you've used to get that money. You're voting against that system. But it's not going to a ballot box, and it's not standing outside with torches and pitchforks. It's not getting together a bunch of gilets jaunes yellow vests to go and burn down the Champs-Élysées. No, you just got to buy some Bitcoin and just keep doing it, and we'll win.
So I've heard someone say, like, let's see, how was it worded? So hyperinflation is a psychological event. And I was kind of thinking, like, what do they mean? And they're like, so once people realize that they have to debase the currency, or they will debase the currency, and those people take that currency and put it into gold, or put it into Bitcoin, or put it into stocks, as long as you don't have it in currency, just buying regular goods in the economy, then they have to print more and more and more to keep up with what they were trying to achieve to begin with. And so it's like, if the population has the realization that your money is practically worthless. I mean, it has whatever its worth is today, but 10 years down the road, it's a fraction. So the second someone realizes that, and then the next person realizes that, it is like a psychological event that leads straight to hyperinflation. When I heard it, I was like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. And then I was thinking, go ahead.
And think about that on a Bitcoin term. Because right now, to buy Bitcoin, you need to find somebody willing to take your fiat currency. As soon as that dries up, you've got a liquidity shock.
Yeah.
Like, why am I going to sell my Bitcoin for dollars or pounds or euros or yen or whatever, again, whichever fiat currency? Why would I do that in a country that is on the verge of hyperinflation? You're just not going to. You're going to hold on to your most valuable asset. And then that asset is just going to keep going up and up and up and up in terms priced or measured against that currency of that country.
Mm-hmm. So I did get off on a little tangent. I wasn't even
done
talking about Choose Life, because I have so many like nuggets from that book that I freaking just love. So I want to ask you about the I don't know what the word would be. You went to New Zealand. You put this like link for like helpx.com. You said you could just work on a farm for 4 hours a day, and they'll provide you with meals, or whatever job. Like, so how was that experience? Because that sounds amazing to me.
That was great. That was before New Zealand went full Nazi under the Jacinda Ardern regime.
Yeah.
We're going back. John Keyes was president at that time, and he was an ex-Wall Street guy. So he was demonized. Oh, he made his money in London. Now he's the prime minister of our country. What a dirty bastard. Like, you said, okay, well, look what you got now, guys. Yeah. Fucking hell. Anyway, so this would have been back in 2016, I guess, if I've got my timeline right. 15, excuse me. And yeah, sure enough, we showed up in New Zealand. We managed to secure a home swap there in Christchurch with a family. They just had this tiny little like kind of annex on their property. And so the beauty of home swapping is you can leverage, if you can even put out a room if you want. It's a bit like Airbnb, I guess. But the idea is, if you've got a property, you list it on the site, and then you can swap with other members. And that might mean we cross in the air, because it's like, you come to my place for 2 weeks and I'll go to your place for 2 weeks. Great. Brilliant. Where are you? I'm in Spain. Where are you? I'm in the US. All right, let's do it. Amazing. You just cross in the air. You leave a key under the mat or with a neighbor, whatever arrangements you make, right? And then you just look after that person's house for 2 weeks, and then you cross back in the air. And most people are like, well, how would you ever do that? Like, no way would I let anybody else stay in my home, because we've been conditioned to think that strangers are all thieves and murderers, and they're going to just come in and wreck our place. They're going to throw huge parties. They're going to take the TV off the wall. And you're like, what are you guys even saying? Like, you know, there's just another family come to stay in your home. And in fact, your home's going to be looked after rather than burnt to the ground.
Yeah.
So that's one way you could do it. Or another way is if you have a vacation home, maybe it only gets rented out 6 months of the year. For the other 6 months a year, you could probably just put it on a home swap site, and people are always shopping around to home swap. And even if you do not want to go to where that other person is coming from, you can receive home swap points within that closed little system. So it's like, yeah, you can go to my place, 10 nights. It's set at 1,000 points for that stay, and I will use those points to approach other people to go where I want to go. So we were constantly juggling this kind of system and trying to get some home swaps and build an itinerary. So we got this one locked in New Zealand. We're all like, well, if we're going to New Zealand, let's max it. Let's go like 3 months. Let's do the South Island. Let's do the North Island. But what we hadn't accounted for was the fact that it was summer, height of season, and for whatever reason that year, Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year in China, was the year of the sheep. And so like all of China wanted to be in New Zealand to celebrate the year of the sheep, because it was very famously known as being a place where you can go and see a lot of sheep. So we could not find accommodation, man. Like we were, it was crazy. So we found this HelpX website where you can find different people on there that would list different projects that they were doing, and they would offer food and shelter in return for working each morning. And we found two farm stays, and we found one. My God, this place was an old disused hospital, which he's such a cool dude. I called this guy up and I'm like, I see this listing. We were down to like 2 nights. We had no idea. We had no idea what we were going to do in 2 nights' time. 4 kids. And I call him up. I'm like, so here's the gig. There's kind of a lot of us. He's like, yeah, no problem, mate. And I'm like, well, how much room do you have? And he's like, I got a whole hospital. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how do you have a hospital? And he's like, yeah, it's a long story, but we need hands on deck and we need your help. So come on over. It's no problem. They're like, all right. So I put the phone down. I look at Claire, my wife. I'm like, well, we've got accommodation, but it's in an old hospital. And we were like, all right, well, whatever. We show up there 2 days later, and it's dark. It's nighttime. And I go into the front like reception, and sure enough, here we are at this hospital, and a sprawling complex, single-story hospital in the middle of the just outside the edge of town in the countryside. And I go in, and there's this dude just like hanging around outside what looks like a reception, and he's like, "How are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, not bad." And I look at this guy; he's covered in tattoos. He's had his head shaved. He's got the spider web tattoo on his head. He's got spiders crawling down his face, tattoos. I'm like, Mom, looking for Jamie. He's like, right, okay, yeah. He's out. I'm like, fucking hell. It's like 10:30 at night. What? Okay. And he's like, he'll be back in like 15 minutes. And so he turns up 15 minutes later. And what Jamie had been doing, he was running back and forth young kids, travelers 18 to 25, that were working and traveling at the same time, but they were getting accommodation with Jamie in the hospital and working at the local meat packing place, Silver Fern. And anybody listening to this from the UK would know that brand. That's the leg of New Zealand lamb that you can buy all over the place. And they would go and work in this meat packing facility just 15 minutes away, and he would minibus them in and out. So Jamie turns up and he shows us upstairs to like this kind of, I guess that must have been where the staff quarters were back in the day. And it's like, yep, here you go. We got plenty of room, plenty of beds. You can put the kids in here. Mate, it was a mess, like a total mess. Like, I don't know, like the worst hostel you could ever kind of imagine. But we got our heads down for the night. And I woke up the next morning. I said to my wife, should we just do a runner? Like, this is a weird place. She's like, we can't do that. We just cannot do that. He seemed like a nice guy. I'm like, yeah, he does seem like a nice guy, but does he even got his shit together? Like, what is going on here? Like, this is crazy. But we ended up sticking around, and I think I froze. I'll keep talking. Did you lose me?
I heard everything you said.
Right.
Your
Okay.
picture was frozen, but I heard everything.
Right. No problem. And so we ended up sticking around, and he needed help painting each room one by one in the hospital. And there were 4 wings to this hospital. And in one wing, his dream was, in one wing, he would have it for like travelers. And another wing, he would have lodging for pensioners, old people. In another wing, he was going to have lodging for ex-offenders, because there was a prison just up the road. And in another wing, I can't even remember now. Another wing, maybe that was going to be for, like higher end travel or something. I'm like, all right, whatever. And he just needed each room painted. So we were just assigned rooms to paint each morning. And then he would take us out in the afternoon and drive us around all the different local areas. And we would get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we got to know him and his daughter really well. And then he took us out one day. He drove us all the way to Dunedin, which was like a 3-hour drive. And he stopped off on beaches along the way, and he showed us all of his favorite little spots and took us. Mate, it was amazing. It's just an amazing way to travel, because when you put your trust in other people, you see their true selves, and you get a much better grasp of the human spirit. Our faith in humanity was completely restored over those 2.5 years of just meeting people like Jamie, and the farm stays we stayed on. Mate, we were milking 250, 260 cows at 5:30 in the morning for a week, my wife and I, whilst the kids were still asleep in the house that this other couple had given us that on their farm. And these experiences will stay with us forever. But the biggest takeaway was from putting yourself out there, being willing to work, willing to help people, and you get rewarded, not just with food and shelter, but you get rewarded with their friendship and their humanity. And it's just a beautiful thing to experience, because we're told the complete opposite every single day in the media, and you end up believing it. And it's not until you get out there and put yourself out there and you meet these people that you realize everyone's the same, everyone's fighting the same battles, and everyone is just really, really nice and just trying to figure out life.
So true, dude. That is awesome. God, it inspires me every time. Um, just so I know you were in Singapore, and like, I'm pretty dumb. Were you a commodities trader in Singapore?
I was a foreign exchange broker.
Foreign exchange broker.
So I'll just give you quick. So the traders are the guys that would work for the banks or the hedge funds. And the brokers are just the guys that sit in the middle and put together the marketplace. So the banks would all plug into the brokerage houses and supply the brokerage houses with rates, with liquidity. In our case, we were doing foreign exchange options. So you would have prices on a specific currency from overnight out to, in the end, we were doing out to like 5, 10, and 15 year. And they would supply rates into the brokerage house. And those rates would be we would keep those rates anonymous until somebody wanted to trade on one of those rates. Then you put the trade together, then you exchange the buyer and seller's name. So we provided an anonymous marketplace for banks to come in and put on their trades, or put on hedge positions. So yeah, I was Mr. Fiat. It was dollars and yen all day long for me, and never questioned the monetary system. And I was rent seeking like a motherfucker, because the only way I made money was by commission, by putting together buyers and sellers.
Well, you could have
And
just
it's
sold everybody's data like Robin Hood.
yes,
You could have done that real
yeah.
quick.
It was an exciting profession, especially in the early days were hell, because you're just a gopher and you're just trying to prove yourself and make it. When you actually get that chance and it all starts clicking for you, and that's when you can really start, building your career. And that's when you start making a decent sum of money. And then the last 5 years, it's too much. Like you just get, burnt out, I suppose. Too long in a tooth for it. You can't stand the bullshit anymore. You start seeing through a lot of things. And for me, I was just, I'd seen too much, and I knew I was just sitting there with a target on my back. And I left that market when I was 37. People thought I was crazy at that point. But even if you hang around for another 5-10 years after that, you'd be considered a geriatric. So it's like, get me out whilst I can.
You have a quote, and it's I see a necktie as a noose you are forced to tie for your own execution. And I guess that's where you were at the time. At 37, you're like, I'm out. Can't take.
Yep.
Were you in Singapore as a broker whenever you kind of like fell down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, or was this in your journeys, or was it before?
I was sitting there laughing at all these Bitcoin idiots in my high ivory tower on the 22nd floor of Singapore, overlooking the South China Sea, very happy and fat and happy. Thank you very much. Or you computer geeks, what do you think you're even doing? And I remember reading, it was on the front page of the International Herald Tribune that used to come around and hit our desk. I remember seeing the guy's face, like, we want our money back, like the guy crying over the Mount Gox fiasco. I remember reading that and just shaking my head. And I told you fucking guys, like, you were never, ever, this was never going to work. And now Bitcoin's dead, and now you've all lost your money. Now you're all going to go back and get your jobs. And, I'm so happy that I never fell for that scam. And you're all idiots. And now look at me, like Bitcoin only podcast. Can't stop talking about anything else. But yeah, I poo-pooed it, dismissed it, just like everybody else did in the early days when you first hear about it. And it wasn't until 2014 that I started asking more questions about it, and started seeing some really impressive interviews, especially Tour de Meester, Trace Mayer, and Wences Cesares, featured on Real Vision. Back when Real Vision actually had a vision and weren't just scammy crypto fuckers. Such a shame. But that's a lesson to be learned of taking venture capitalist money, basically. Has been the fall down of,
I think, a quote of yours. You said, everyone pays a tuition in Bitcoin. So
who said that? Someone said that on my pod. I cannot take credit for that. Maybe it was at the Money Tech when he was talking about his home mining, because that was his.
I think so. Yeah, I think you might be right. I thought you said it, but I definitely listened to that episode because I was actually planning on asking you how your home mining was going.
It's not plugged in. They're not plugged in. There's still a wait time going on. The guy who has the access to free power blew his knee out the minute almost that the mining machines turned up here in France. So he's been completely laid up. He's had to have complete knee surgery, totally restructured, ligaments kind of attached, and so we're just waiting for him to get a little bit more mobile, and then we'll get over and we'll plug them in. But they're burning a hole. They're burning a hole in my basement right now, sitting there not earning sats, and I just can't wait to get them plugged in and playing around with them.
I want a mine so bad. I'm gonna do it soon, but it's so expensive for energy. Energy bills. And like I have that like Bitcoin maxi, never sell your Bitcoin. So I'm just gonna be like working harder, working overtime to just try to pay my energy bill. Man,
that's true.
Did you? All right, dude. Did you ever shitcoin?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Of course. 2017. I remember vividly selling 2 or 3 Bitcoin and exchanging them for Ethereum, Dash, and Litecoin, and thinking I was this shit. And telling my wife I'm diversifying our cryptocurrency portfolio. That should be like sitting at dinner looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, geez, like whatever. Like, first of all, you think you're an author and you're going to write a book, and now like you're talking about diversifying cryptocurrency. Like, yeah, that didn't work out so well as well. It did to begin with, and you think you're the fucking shit when all of these shit coins moon, and you're sitting there thinking, yeah, I've cracked it. I know what I'm doing. And just every day looking at your position and thinking how much money you now have in fiat terms. You're always looking at fiat terms. Mm-hmm. It's not until you make that. It's like when you can switch that to, it doesn't matter how many dollars or euros or pounds this is worth. All that matters is how many sats I have. That's it. When you start making that switch, that's when everything changes. And that was not happening for me. I was still making every single investment decision in dollar terms. Every single one.
It's so hard to think in dollar terms because you never think about the fact that like in 1940, a house was $5,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to fathom that same $5,000 house is $400,000 today. And so you think, oh, I'm making $100,000 a year. Oh, I made this trade and made $10,000 or whatever. But you're really, you're just getting worthless paper. You're getting monopoly money that the population believes in currently. But that's
and the bank takes the asset.
Yeah.
This is what mortgages did. That $5,000 home is still the same freaking home. In fact, it's probably worse because it's atrophied over years, especially if somebody's never actually updated it. But now it's worth $400,000 and it's the banks. It used to be $5,000 and the persons. Not anymore. Nobody owns property. Not like 95% of people listening to this podcast are going to have a mortgage. That means the bank owns your home. Mm-hmm. It's the bank's house. And who are you going to sell it to? You're going to sell it to a bank because the person has taken a mortgage from the bank. The banks own the property. They fucked us. Mm-hmm. They've taken it all. The transfer of property is almost complete. And this is why we got in the Bitcoin space in the last 9 months when BlackRock started announcing that they're buying up as much rental property as they can. Now the hedge funds are trying to get in on the freaking grift. Mm-hmm. So at the turn of the century, as Safe lays out in the fiat standard, that the Bank of England, the UK government, in cahoots with each other, started stealing the people's gold in England under the guise of national emergency acts to fight the war, the ongoing war, First World War between 1914 and 1918, which England should never have even been a part of anyway. That the whole thing is just a complete farce. But they ordered people to start paying in gold into the post office and to the banks and businesses to issue paper. So you had to pay your gold in and then accept paper as your wages. And that's exactly what the same system got copied by Roosevelt and no, it was Hoover, excuse me, with Executive Order 6102 in the early 30s in the US, where the people of the USA were sanctioned to come in and bring all of their gold immediately to the bank in exchange for paper, and then they devalued the worth of that paper by 40% within a couple of months of doing that. So these nation states, man, like they stole the gold from the people, and then they stole the property from the people, and now all we have is their paper fucking promises that they just keep inflating to the high heavens. And that's what inflation is. And inflation is an increase in the monetary supply. That's inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Price rises are a consequence of that inflation.
Yeah.
And so we're fucked. We're beholden to it. We're slaves to it.
It makes me think of a few things, like what you just said. So it makes me think of God, I'm drawing a blank on the quote, but it's in I am retarded. I cannot think right now. What was I thinking? Oh, Creature of Jekyll Island. It made me think of Creature of Jekyll Island and the story of just how they set up everything. And then I can't remember who I was talking to or listening to, and they were talking about the World War One war bonds and how essentially it was like 10% bought or 18% bought, and then the government and the banks just kind of manipulated everything to buy it all and just pay for what they want.
That was the Bank of England. That's the first chapter of the Fiat Standard, Seyfedino Moose. He found those documents. Those documents were drawn out the basement of the Bank of England archives in 2017 and uploaded to the website. And he found them and he read through them, and the pennies started dropping. He's like, so this is how they did it. They issued war bonds in 1914. The English people, they didn't want any part of that war. They couldn't see any reason at all to go to war with these countries, just because some archduke that they'd never heard of had been shot in a country they'd never heard of. Like you got to remember, this is 1914, right? So that news would have just been in a newspaper. So it's not like there wouldn't have been 24-hour streaming kind of coverage. And so they issue these war bonds and nah, we don't see any freaking need for that. Like, what are you talking about? They sold less than a third of these war bonds. So what they did is they had two employees of the Bank of England, if I remember correctly, buy the rest in their name. So it was in their name. They bought the rest. Done. 100% sold. The Financial Times reports it. War bonds sold. So now the people, they believe, oh shit. Though, the majority all of a sudden were flipped into thinking they were the minority. Mm-hmm. And all right, oh fuck. All our neighbors do want to go to war. All our neighbors do want to send their sons and their money to this. All right. And you sold a nation. And the sickest thing of all of this is safe. Again, he mentioned this in his book. There's a memo from John Maynard Keynes congratulating the Bank of England on their masterful manipulation.
Yeah.
Now, like those people that scream conspiracy theorists at you and point fingers at you, like even when you present this kind of information to them, then I'm no. Like, what are you talking about? And yeah, in Jekyll Island as well, he goes on about the bringing the USA into the First World War and the sinking of the Lusitania.
Mm-hmm.
That is beyond. Oh man, like of course we're taught as our First World War history. The sinking of the Lusitania was the turning point in the First World War because that outraged American citizens, and that is what forced America to, pick up arms and sail across the pond and come and rescue the ailing Brits and the other Allied forces. And if it were not for the Americans coming to our rescue, the Lusitania was set up.
Yeah.
This is the only way they knew what they were doing. They murdered those people.
Mm-hmm.
That when you read it in Jekyll Island, and you can, since I've gone on other websites and tried to verify what he was saying. Yeah, but sure enough, she was supposed to be escorted out of harbor. She was supposed to be met out of harbor and then escorted through a danger zone. They knew exactly that some German U-boats had been operating in these exact point that they had sent her on this journey. That ship was called back by Churchill himself, who was Admiral of the Fleet at the time, if I remember correctly. And just so happened to be a really nasty weather night, and the captain of the ship figured they'd just missed each other and kept sailing. Not only that, she was ordered to sail under 75%. Not all of her engines were beating for whatever reason. I can't remember why. Straight into the target zone. And sure enough, German U-boat sees it, pulls around, pops one torpedo, and the boat sinks within 12 to 14 minutes or something. And there's an account of the German captain of the U-boat saying, "We were about to load torpedo 2 when I told him, don't bother, don't waste it. This is done, it's over." Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And then divers found the thing was packed full of explosives, munitions. Why the fuck were munitions leaving the shores of the war zone to be taken back to the non-war zone? It's just, come on.
It's wild.
So bad, man.
Your memory, you're like an elephant, bro. How did you just recall all that? That was amazing. I hadn't read it in a couple of months, and then I was like, yes, and then, oh my god.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, what a setup. I remember reading it just in shock, appalled. But I guess we're getting close to the end here, so let me see what I wanted to make sure I touched on before I set you free.
I don't have a hard stop, so you can keep going if you like.
Okay, cool.
I'm all good.
I did want to know, so we talked about a lot of books, but this is the Books and Bitcoin podcast. So I just kind of want to know what other books that you've read that really shaped you. And before you start, I got a recommendation for you before I forget to
go ahead.
Dan Gardner, him and Philip Tetlock wrote Super Forecasting, but then he wrote a book called I think it's Risk: The Science of Fear. That book, I feel like you would really connect with it because I've been reading it lately, and I'm 20% in. I'm like, well, it's one of those future predicting books written in 2008, and it is hammering 2022. Aged well.
Really? Okay. So Risk: The Science of Fear, yeah?
Yes.
What's the name of the author?
Dan Gardner.
Okay, I'm going to look that up. All right, thanks for the tip. I have not heard of it.
It's on Audible too, if you want to just pop in an earphone.
100%. Yeah, I just what did I listen to just the other day in one sitting? America, United States of Fear by Dr. Mark McDonald.
Writing it down.
it's, I got through it. I think I banged it up to like 1.25 speed, and you'll get through that in 3 hours. And everything's completely easily digestible at that speed as well. Poof. And he just, is a child, no, a psychiatrist working with a lot with kids, troubled kids, troubled teens, and families, obviously, because it takes a parent to bring a child in to have psychotherapy, obviously. And he just unloaded on what's been going on the last 2-3 years with the whole lockdowns and whatever else. And he's been shaken to the core, and you'll definitely enjoy that. But yeah, back to your original question, books that have shaped me. With the 4-Hour Work Week was the one that turned my head upside down with regards to living a deferred lifestyle. That really hit home when Tim Ferriss, wrote about the fact that we get tricked into deferring everything that we want to do in exchange for a half decent job, a salary, the white picket fence, the 2.4 kids, the American dream, basically, which was another incredible meme. You realize, shit, that's me. And if you can step back and start dissecting it and really asking who you really are and who you really should be, and what you want out of life, and what are your truths, you find yourself in a pretty dark place pretty quickly. But it's nothing you can't fix. This is the thing that people miss. All that fixes it is a lot of introspection and a lot of hard work, basically doing the uncomfortable things. Nothing good ever happened inside your comfort zone. It always happens outside your comfort zone. And that's when you find those extra skills that you didn't even think you possessed, and you find that extra resilience. So that's one for sure. I was a big fan of Tim's. I also read his 4-Hour Body book, which helped me go down the rabbit hole of fiat food, as Safe would call it, that the foods that we've been coerced into eating and lied to about. And we see now on Twitter, Bitcoin Twitter, we see that a lot, right? All of the seed oils, and how the food pyramid was turned upside down. I think it was late 80s, early 90s. Man, like the shit we've believed. It's not the lies we've been told that's crazy. It's the shit that we've believed, when all of a sudden you're told, yeah, meat's bad for you, eat all these grains, which we can mass produce at very nice juicy margins for ourselves at the detriment of your health. But wait, the detriment of your health, that's good. That means you're going to stay sick, and that means you're going to buy our drugs. So yeah, he's one author and 2 books of his that definitely helped. And then all the Bitcoin books, like all of them. I've read so many of them. Knut von Holm, he's written 3 of them. I've got a whole stack of them behind me here. What else is up there? Yeah. So pick up any Bitcoin book you want. And then the other books that I spend a lot of time in investing in are the books about so-called, in air quotes, alternative education. Or books that challenge that education system, because we were outside of it for that 2.5 years. We're outside of it again with 3 out of 4 of our children. You see through it so easily. And John Taylor Gatto is a brilliant writer for that. John Holt, Peter Gray, Naomi Fisher have all done amazing work, that if anybody listening to this is questioning the education system, and you 100% should be questioning the education system, that is your right. You have a right to choose how to educate your children. That is basic. Fun fact, Germany had a very high adoption rate of homeschooling, and the more elitist families, the more higher class families, upper middle class, whatever you want to call them, they would engage in homeschooling. It was very, very prevalent, and it was very widely accepted until Hitler and Goebbels outlawed homeschooling in Germany in 1938. And that was the first bill or second, you'll have to fact check me, first or second bill that they put through after coming to complete power in 1938. They were in power from 33, but they took complete power in 38, i.e. the military and everything was now theirs due to some scandal at the military leadership level. All of a sudden, it came under the complete Nazi regime. That was the first thing they did. I mean, why, man? Why? Why was that number one on their list of shit to close down?
I'm sure you've read 1984.
Yes.
And so, like, you know how they have the schools and the kids are like little spies for Big Brother? I mean, that's it.
Yep.
The same thing.
Mm-hmm. Exact same thing. But here's the biggest question. It's 2022. Why has that never been repealed, Germany?
US. It's the same here.
Homeschooling is widely adopted in the US. You've got better laws there. Some states differ, but it's not illegal.
Yeah, no, it's not illegal. It's just not
it's frowned upon.
Yeah, it's socially frowned upon.
And there will be snitches in the US. There's a lot of because you have truancy kind of neighborhood police, right? That snitch on kids that are not in school, sort of thing.
Yeah,
a lot of homeschooled families have suffered that. But
yeah, I was at the mall once. I wasn't homeschooled. I was actually skipping school, but I was at the mall once with my buddy and my girlfriend, and we got stopped by a cop, and they held us till my mom came and picked us up, and it was a whole deal for truancy. Like
think about that.
80% of my life and then have homework when I get home. Like, what the hell is the point? For nothing, too. You're not studying anything relevant. Everything important I've learned in my life, I've learned after high school.
Yeah. If you think about what we're doing to kids, 8 hours a day in school with minimal breaks, low grade food, and then piling on top of them the stress and the pressure, and then loading them up with 2 to 3 hours minimum of homework each day. They're doing more work than like most adults, and they're handling the same amount of pressure, and they're handling all of the in-house politics as well, like the classroom politics, just the same as, but they have zero voice. Zero.
None.
It's totalitarian in there.
Bathroom passes.
Yeah.
And
Peter Gray made this analogy. Peter Gray said prisoners have a way much easier time than a school kid, and so he's likened schools to prisons. And they actually have.
I was going. After I wanted to be a police officer, but you have to be 21, right, and you graduate high school like 17. So as soon as I turned 18, I became a prison guard. I did it for a very, very short time because I thought I was going to do it till I was 21 and become a cop. But they have it bad. Well, there's some things, but like when I was working there, I was like, dang, this is the public school system just for grown men who are murderers, but it's the same, except for they can't go home at night. That's like literally the only difference.
Yep.
Wild.
It is, mate. It is.
All right, Dan. That was a wonderful talk. I am so glad we got to do this, man. The Choose Life, best book. Inspiration. You want to give a little handoff?
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody wants to check out the book, feel free to go and find it on Amazon. If you want to hold back, if you're a Bitcoiner, excuse me. If you're a Bitcoiner and would rather pay in Bitcoin, there's going to be a few options coming your way. Consensus Network have offered to put the book on their website, and that's KONSUS Network, and that's Nico and team, who you should check out anyway, because they are doing an incredible job of taking as many Bitcoin or Bitcoin related books as they can get their hands on and translating them into as many different languages as they can. So Choose Life is currently being translated into Portuguese, and it's going to be going live on Consensus Network, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So you'll be able to buy that, and you'll get a discount if you pay in Bitcoin, and you'll get a discount if you use somebody's referral link. So look out for that. And then the other thing I'm going to do is release the book on my own podcast. So I have the Once Bitten podcast, and I'm going to read a chapter and probably update with just kind of afterthoughts, because I wrote the book back in 2017. So I've changed a lot. A lot of those services in the book would have changed or changed name or something. So I'm thinking about reading the book a chapter at a time, releasing it on the podcast. And if anybody wants to listen to that, you can obviously listen to that for free. Or if you head over to Fountain app or Breeze app and listen, you can stream some Satoshis whilst you're listening to the podcast. You just set it and forget it, maybe 50 sats per minute, which is like micro change. And that'll be another way just to kind of support the book and support the show. And you should get your own podcast on there if you haven't already, mate.
I need to.
All right, I'll send you the link for Fountain and the guys that help you get set up, and then you can start stream. That's all I ever use to listen to as well. So I'm constantly streaming sats to the other podcasters in the space that are set up.
See, I always use Apple, and then the occasional Spotify. I need to download it. I've heard about Mastodon too. Mastodon.
Yeah, that's like a Twitter kind of not rival.
Okay,
that's what I'm looking for. Alternative. But I don't know whether they were doing pods on there. I don't know.
Okay, so it's Fountain for podcast, Mastodon for Twitter. Gotcha. All right, Dan.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful.
So yeah, and anybody can reach me on Twitter at Princey SOV, and SOV stands for Store of Value, because that's what I believe Bitcoin to be at this current time. One day it will become a very widely adopted medium of exchange. So I'll have to update my Twitter handle when it comes to that point. But right now, stack as hard as you can, dollar cost average, whenever you can, set it up daily, weekly, monthly, whatever you can afford, because this is a way to store your time and effort and your value into the future.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers, brother. Thanks for having me on, Dylan.
Oh, dude, thanks for coming. It was an honor. It was a pleasure. It was an honor. I loved it.